and welcome to this first episode of 2024 of Norwich Theatre Talks. On today's episode, we are going to be meeting the amazing Zoe Phillips, who leads all of our marketing and campaigns teams with a very special Norwich Theatre Talks first colleague from her team. Anybody who's been around the comedy and theatre scene in Norwich and Norfolk for any time will no doubt know the work of the Nimmo twins. Made up of Owen Evans and Karl Minns, this duo comedy sketch show has been performing here at the Playhouse for almost 30 years, picking up on all the oddities, foibles, quirks and curiosities of our brilliant life here in the county of Norfolk. My first guest I'm delighted to welcome is the writing powerhouse behind the Nimmo twins, and that's Karl Minns. Karl, welcome to Norwich Theatre Talks.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I feel a bit odd welcoming you to the Playhouse. This is kind of a home for you, isn't it? Sitting in here.
I never leave. It just feels like every time I come over, I live in the vents. It feels like I've spent the best part of the last 22, 23 years here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is home from home.
A real sort of special place, because the Nimmos have been around for what we've had the 20th anniversary.
25th last year, so it's 26. So yeah, we are creeping inexorably towards 30 years of the Nimmo twins, which is insane to even think about.
But still absolutely loved and adored. I mean, the shows last year, Holt, we went there.
Yes.
The buzz was just incredible.
Yeah.
You guys are part of, the kind of local conscience.
We are. We've sort of become, you start off as kind of iconoclastic, taking the mickey out of everything, and then you become part of the furniture yourself. So all the people you used to take the mickey out of, we're now friends with.
Yeah.
And we're part of the kind of culture. But yeah, I mean, I'm extraordinarily grateful, because when we started, I mean, it was just like, well, if we can get a year and a half out of this and get some beer money, I was signing on. I think Owen was tearing tickets at the Odeon on Prince Charles Road.
Right.
We used to have a cinema there. So we were both like, well, if we can get a few quid, but God, if you'd have told us it had lasted 5 years, we'd have been staggered, let alone it's now our third or fourth decade. Yeah, it's insane.
It's incredible, but still that sort of chemistry between the two of you, and it's evolved, over the years, hasn't it? It's not been static. Some of the characters are the same.
Yeah, it's really changed. I mean, I've just moved into a new house, and I finally got all the scripts together, and I was going through all the scripts from some of them from 1994, was extraordinary. I think 30 years ago, which is bizarre when I first write stuff. And it's amazing how much the comedy has changed, but also how much the seeds of stuff that we still do now were in there. So I found really early versions of the Shigo language thing. And a couple of songs, the Go Back to London song is a polite way of putting it, but there was a very, very early nascent version of that from 1998. The lyrics were different, but the opening few lines were exactly the same. The butcher shop now sells antiques, the streets are dead all through the week, and that was there. But I gave up. I kind of scribbled through it, and then it came back. So yeah, it's bizarre that we're around, but yeah, the characters have a longevity. I mean, Shigo was probably the one that's the most.
Absolutely, and they're kind of sort of common currency for people who come every year.
Yeah.
There are certain things. I remember when we moved here 7 years ago, I was told you must see Nimmo's. It's a rite of passage.
Be blooded. You got the blood on your cheeks afterwards, didn't you? And
Definitely. But you did the show last year. You're working towards a new Nimmo show for next summer.
This summer, yep.
And there's Shigo in January. We'll talk about them in a bit more detail in a minute. I'm just really keen to understand how you go, because you write the shows.
Yep.
It's your content, isn't it?
Yes.
What's your kind of process? Is it, I sit down and I just, do it all in one go, or is there this constant? Because it's social observation, isn't it?
It's constant. There are periods where obviously I have to write, where the best way to write a show is to book a theatre, and then you have to do it. That would be my advice to any nascent writers out there: book a theatre, and then it's the best kick up the bum you can get. But it's constant. So if I'm not physically writing, I'm walking around the city, I'm going through new stuff, and I just write stuff down. And I've just been in the library just now and came up with an idea for a sketch and wrote the first 4 lines. And that's already starting to kind of see something else. So once being a writer or being a comedic writer, you think of things comedically all the time. So I'm looking all the time. But physically, I try and write every day to an extent, even if it's just an hour. And then as the shows get closer and closer and closer, they become 5, 8, 10, sometimes 12-hour days of just perfecting it and rewriting it, getting all the slides into place. So it's planting seeds a few months ago and then harvesting them now, sort of, if that isn't a weird analogy.
No, I totally, I completely get it. And, you know, one of the things, I bet I've seen you get this on social media quite a few times, because you scan the local media, don't you?
Yeah.
And I see people constantly going, Carl, you can have this, you can have this.
Yeah.
Is that helpful or just a bit annoying?
It's really well-meaning, and I love the fact that people want to be involved. Occasionally someone will send me an absolute gem. The tricky thing is when they send a story that is sort of intrinsically funny, but it's a sort of one-line joke. Like I got sent through a fat man on a moped stole a bacon roll. He nicked a bacon roll and drove off on a moped as a bacon. And someone said, this is perfect for your show. And it kind of, I know what they mean, but there's not anything you can kind of pull apart. It's just a joke. The funniest stories are when it's things like when NASA said they were looking for astronauts from Norfolk. Because there's so many jump-offs, there's so many kind of different things. Well, what would they say, you know? What would they be dressed like? How would they cope with being in space? How would they... So there's 10 or other subjects that come from that. We call them push-outs in comedy. You push out into it.
Yeah.
But I never ever want to stop people sending stories in because, yes, I mean, sort of 1 in 10 you kind of go, oh, I missed that. And it's a really, really good story.
Yeah.
And even if it's just a really funny headline, it goes in. So, yeah, people feel invested in the shows, not just by coming to them, but by being part of the process. So people come up to me in the street, people come to me in shops and mention stuff, or they're kind enough to say, oh, have you seen this? So yeah, it's lovely. It does feel, because it's such a small city, that can happen.
Totally. And one of the things that I've noticed from Nimmo shows and from Shigo is that you create that sort of up and downness, which isn't a term, of you know, some gentle stuff, some quite rolling stuff, and then you just really pack a punch with something that comes from nowhere.
Yes.
It's like, take people out of their comfort zone just a little bit, and is that an intentional technique?
Totally. I mean, from the early shows, we just put in the shows were in no particular order, so you just got sketch, end, and when you go and see a live concert, you know, there'll be an opener that you know, and there'll be a couple of new tracks, and there'll be a hit, then there'll be a lull, then there'll be a rocky one, and then they'll have the big finale. So when we're plotting the shows, it's like, well, nothing can follow She Go in the first, so She Go has to bookend the first half, and before that you need something strong, then you can have a quiet one, and so it's very thought out in terms of the rhythm of the show.
Yeah.
Because if you open with She Go and you go ta-da, then you've kind of got nowhere to go but just to muddle along. So yeah, it's thought. I think of it like a concert. I think of it exactly the same way as if I go and see a gig. You don't want all the hits in the first 10 minutes.
No.
And you don't want 5 new songs back to back. You want them kind of interspersed in. So yeah, it's very thought out. And sometimes it's really difficult because, well, yeah, Owen's off stage then, but then I need to cover his change into there. We need this bit. So yeah, we sort of weave it together.
And you are always evolving it, aren't you, as well? Because I know you take it so personally to give people a really good time, whereas I'm not saying some artists would do this, but you follow the audience pattern, don't you? You're always changing the show as it first gets going, aren't you? That's real care to make sure the audience has a good time.
Well, you can call it care, you can call it neurosis, you can call it...
I was being nice.
Yeah, it's a sort of neurosis where I'm mentally making notes all the time, where if a sketch or a line isn't working, I'll rewrite the show again and again. I mean, it drives Owen mad, and rightly so. He's a trained actor. He wants to be on stage on the first night, and it's locked in, so he can just enjoy himself. But for me, if a bit isn't working, it's got to go. It's like, well, either we cut it or I'll rewrite it. So I tend to stop rewriting in a 14 or 15 night run. I'll stop rewriting about maybe show 8 or show 9. So quite late in. But I'll be fiddling all the time. Yeah. Because I want them to have the best 2 hours. I kind of want to be laughing as much as I can constantly for the 2 hours, not exhausting them, but keep it rolling. And sometimes you have to be brutal. Stuff that you've spent months writing, just it's got to pay the rent. If it doesn't pay the rent, it's got to go, and it's painful.
Yeah. And in that writing process, just thinking back to that, you know, that sort of taking people from comfort zone to out of comfort zone, has that shifted? And I've talked to other comedians about this as well, around, you know, the times around us.
Yeah.
Are you more conscious of that now? Are there spaces you don't go
I don't think there are spaces you can't go.
Yeah.
I think it's a personal thing. Again, going through the scripts, I was, even for scripts from 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, I'd never do that now. And that's not because of some external thing like, the pressure from outside or social media or the news or the social mores. But just because I've changed.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I think, I'm slightly nervous and uncomfortable about the idea of censorship being imposed from above.
Yeah.
You cannot say this, you can't do this. I think it just happens naturally. I look back at early Nimmos and God, what was I saying? I wouldn't do that now. But it's not because of some Damascene moment where you go, oh my God, it's because gradually you grow up and your attitudes change. But yeah, I think
it's just not funny.
Yeah, or it's not funny anymore, and the audience will tell you.
Yeah.
If your audience is laughing, then it's they're the great arbiter.
What's it you call it? The laughter wall.
Yeah, the Norfolk enjoyment wall.
That's it.
I mean, if you're getting that, then you've hit the wrong note.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think with social media, what would happen in the old days, you'd get 2 green ink letters during a run from people going, I was really offended by X, Y, and Z, and you think, oh, whatever. Now, of course, with social media, one person can create a firestorm, or not just, it hasn't really happened with my show, but I know with other people's, and that's not always a good thing. But I think really it's an individual thing. If you're prepared to go on stage and you can justify the jokes you're saying, then good luck with then that's the thing. And that's the thing I always do is, can I justify what I'm saying, and could I justify that to someone who may have an issue with it?
Yeah.
And that really has become the editing process.
Yeah. And all comedy is based on observation, isn't it? And observation is often associated with various identities, and you can't take that out of comedy. That's going to pull the rug, isn't it? It's just, surely there must be that thing around that sort of balance, everybody's fair game, because everybody does things and does funny things.
Yes, everybody does stupid things, and everybody has ridiculous things about them, everybody. So therefore, if we're going to have an inclusive society, that means that, you can investigate and find humour in areas that are tricky sometimes. And I think I always think that with She Go, she finds to me, she's the kind of closest I get to a kind of generic Norfolk voice, where she's not pretty, she's just trying to find her way through it as a now 52-year-old woman, trying to understand what's going on with the world. And because as soon as you put that vision on it, there's no malice there. It's somebody that just is a little bit confused.
Yeah.
But it's trying to find a way, and sometimes getting it wrong without malice. And I think that, when it lands with the audience, shows that there's a lot of people in the audience who feel the same way. You're going, I'm glad that you've said that, because I'm trying to work my way through it as well.
Yeah, that's I think that's absolutely right. And She Goes, one of the longest standing characters.
She first appeared, I think it was 99. I think it was end of 98 or beginning of 90. We took her to Edinburgh in 99, so it's been 24 years she's been around. And she's changed a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah, again,
just the hair colour, the tracksuit.
But the hair colour has stayed the same. But going
She's got a nice new pink top.
She does have a nice pink top. She has a lovely pink top. It's really comfortable. I mean, I love dressing as her in a way that, if you'd have told me that I would have been in any way a drag act with this face and this body, it's like the last thing I ever wanted to do. But it's become so comfortable to do. But yeah, she's changed a lot. I went through again some old scripts from I think 99 or 2000, and she was much more aggressive. She was much more kind of, not nihilistic, but she was sort of quite selfish, and she was just out having a lot of fun with boys, and she's softened because I've softened. And she's probably, I mean, with Billy Boy there are elements of me, but with She Go, there's probably the closest character to me is probably She Go.
Yeah.
Which I would never have thought, even 5 or 10 years ago.
And what's she been up to? She's coming back to us in January because she goes to Sulu now.
She goes to Sulu. She's been up to a lot of things. There's a new man in her life, but I won't tell you about that right now. She met up with her ex-hubby Dean over New Year. I won't tell you about that stuff, and it did happen. Destiny has split up with her girlfriend Beckles and is now very happily single and has joined Extinction Rebellion.
Has
and
she?
putting all her energies into saving the planet. Yeah. So yes, there's a few things going on. Yeah.
And she's gonna give us a rundown of 2023, an insightful commentary on world events
of last year.
Yeah.
Looking back at 2023 from behind. And there's a lot. I've been going through the big events of the year, and the one thing I realised that she didn't really do was do the big national stories. They've all been local. So this time I thought, well, actually, let's have her looking at the war in Ukraine. Let's have her looking at, the ecological meltdown. Let's have her looking at what's going on in Gaza, and just sort of trying to find her way through that. And that's kind of a bit of a kind of light bulb moment of going, because I'm a hostage to what goes on in Norwich and in Norfolk.
Yeah.
And if there's a quiet year, there can be panic. I've spoken, you've had me on the phone many times. There's nothing happening.
Quick, let's create
For God's sake, set fire. Burn something down. Just give me a story. And that was the case this year. So I thought,
I actually genuinely think sometimes the EDP hand you those headlines.
They do.
I think they do.
Some of them are bizarre. Some of them are extraordinary this year as well. I mean, there is actually a lot of them. But I think just her having a look at some things that are bigger than what happens outside of Beverley Road and the city, which is that felt a really interesting thing to do. And the EDP did it, which is the bit I've just started writing. 15 things Norwich gave the world, and number one was postcodes. So straight away, I mean, who knew that Norwich invented the postcode? Who knew? So her take on that and her take on other stuff, and it's so, even when I think there's nothing there, it's just like, well, what would a 50-year-old woman presented with this? It's like someone's bunged it all in front of her and gone, okay, what do you think? And as soon as I start thinking like that, rather than like me, then it starts to flow. Yeah.
And you've got a busy year coming up.
Yes.
Here, because there is a brand new Nimmo show. You're back with Owen. We're back here Playhouse
with a show called this summer called If You Tolerate This, Then Your Children Will Be Next, which I've written about 25 minutes, half an hour of already. But again, we tried a few bits out in Holt. We went there last year, and there's a few bits survived. But yeah, looking forward to that. It'd be really nice to do a brand new show. So we'll be start rehearsing that in June.
Fantastic.
Doesn't feel that long away.
No. And also, the thing I wanted, and some people kind of don't realise, is writing Nimmo's material is only just one part of your writing life, isn't it? And one of the, obviously I love Nimmo shows and I adore Shigo, but sort of biography, which is the piece that we did.
Yes.
2017, 2018, something like that.
We repeated it, didn't we? We did it again in 2020. That's
Karl, isn't it?
Yeah, that was me.
That's the wigs and the hats and the paddy gilets.
Tossed to one side.
Exactly.
And the bald, naked truth of me. Yeah. Yeah, it's the show probably I'm most proud of in terms of that it was brave. It felt an act of bravery, and it felt that, for me to go on stage as myself, which I hadn't done since I'd given up stand-up comedy, which was nearly 20 years before. And I had a difficult childhood, and I had a lot of things going on, and I thought, well, okay, I'll tell this. And actually, in terms of the way it landed, and in terms of the response, it was amazing. And I've got the nascent idea for another show. I inherited a lot of love letters between my grandparents, my father's parents, which are very beautiful. And I thought, well, I'm going to write a show about love and about my slightly chaotic car crash kind of love life over the last 20 years, interspersed with their story, which is really beautiful. They met when they were 16 and stayed together till they were nearly 90, till they died. And there's something about, I thought, I want to write a show about love, which, it feels a bit universal, a bit trite. But I figure if I can take what I learned from sort of biography, and again, the best way to make a show universal is to write a personal show.
Yeah.
Because you realise that pretty much everyone has the same neurosis, fears, insecurities. And if you put them on stage and say, this is how I feel, people go, me too. So that's probably going to be the show I write as soon as I finish the Nimmos. I want to do something more personal again. It feels time. And yeah, it's always a bit challenging because people do want, they go, it's not Shigo, it's not the Nimmos, and we've still got to kind of reel them in as an audience. But it's something that it's been niggling at me for about 2 years, so I need to write it.
Well, I love working with you on projects, and it was actually it seems so long ago. Of course, you made your pantomime debut last year as the
Yes.
voice of the Giant.
The Giant,
Yeah,
yes. That
indeed.
It was bizarre. There's one of the strangest experiences I had was being in the theatre, hearing my voice, and sort of being in the production, but not being in the production. It's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Because I'm I'm part of the cast every night, but I'm sat at home watching telly. So you get all the glory, but none of the effort of having to turn to a theatre every night. But it was wonderful. It was really, really wonderful, and
People really got it, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they really kind of got that's a Nimmo twins job.
Absolutely, yeah. It had kind of enough Nimmo twins tropes, and it went so well that I'm not in the panto this year.
Yes, absolutely. Always good.
Yeah, just once is enough. But wonderful Joe Trissini is kind of leading the charge, and there's no one better than that.
Karl, it is absolutely brilliant to chat. I love working with you. It's brilliant
Ditto,
having
my
you
friend.
as part of our kind of artistic family. We've got Shigo, which opens very soon. It opens on the 10th
No, the
of
10th.
January.
I need to shave.
Oh.
This is gotta go. That's the worst thing. This is just got to go. Yeah.
And then tickets will very soon be on sale for If You Tolerate
Tolerate It.
This.
Your Children Will Be Next, which will probably go on sale as soon as we finish She Go, I imagine.
Absolutely right. And thank you for joining me on Norwich Theatre Talks. And if you haven't got your tickets for Shigo, check online. There are a few left. Or call the box office for returns. But good luck with the run, Karl. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. January 10th to 21st at Norwich Playhouse, Mondays and Tuesdays excluded. Be there.
What he said.
I don't think I ever told you about the extraordinary Mrs. Alice Drablow of Eel Marsh House. Dead, don't you know?
Children?
No, there were no children. Go home, take the afternoon train from King's Cross, changing at Crewe and again at Homerby.
This is Crewe Station. Passengers for Homerby, please change here.
From Homerby, you take the branch line to the little market town of Crith in Gifford.
Ah, bound for the funeral. It's a far-flung part of the world.
Tell me, that woman, she looks so dreadfully unwell. Who was she?
You shouldn't go there alone. You're a fool if you go on with it.
A nightlight. Let it be morning. Let it be light. Spider? Who is it, Spider? Who is it, girl?
My next feature on Norwich Theatre Talks is going to introduce you to two really important members of our marketing team. First is Zoe Phillips, who is our Head of Sales and Marketing, along with Oscar, a very special guest. We're delighted to have you, our Head of Barketing. Zoe and Oscar, welcome to Norwich Theatre Talks.
Thank you.
Zoe, tell us a little bit about your role within Norwich Theatre.
My role is very wide-reaching. Effectively, my job is to engage audiences, to bring them into the theatre in all shapes and sizes, whether that's bringing people into the cafe or getting them into the restaurant, getting them to shows. I work with the producers of the shows to find what excites audiences and basically sell tickets is the end goal for everything, but that comes in all shapes and sizes.
You make an enormous task sound very, very easy, because I think some people might forget just the number of different shows. It's not that it's just one show a week at the Royal. Often we can have 5 shows a week at the Royal. We can have 7 different shows a week here at the Playhouse. There are a lot of different parts, aren't there?
And Panto is 12 months of the year.
Absolutely. Yes.
So before we finish the last one, we're already on sale with the next one. And that's a year-long campaign. We've got shows coming in 2025 that want to start their marketing campaigns now.
Yeah.
Plus the Playhouse, Stage 2, the cafe, the restaurant, creative engagement.
Yeah.
You name it, we market it.
And you help too, Oscar.
He has to make his opinion very well known.
Indeed. Well, yes, we'll come back to that. But for you and for your team, it is about bringing people through the door, isn't it? But it goes a lot deeper. You guys, and I know you really measure success, and that is the numbers of people, but it's also drilling down into who those people are, how often they're coming, how we're getting people to perhaps try different things.
Yeah, I mean, COVID might feel done. We're still trying to repair the impact from COVID. A lot of our regular audiences didn't feel comfortable returning straight away, so there's been a big piece of work trying to re-engage. Yes, I know. You can talk in a minute, mate. There's been a big piece of work trying to engage new audiences, trying to re-engage existing audiences, but also we came out of COVID and then they threw the cost of living crisis at us.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of out of one fire into another, trying to get new people to come to the theatre, basically.
And if ever you want to understand anything about our audiences, Zoe is the go-to person. I mean, it's not thrown together, is it? You are constantly looking at who's booking for what, when people are booking, and understanding all those different drivers. And what's it feeling like at the moment? Because people make sweeping kind of assumptions, don't they? But you've got that kind of data and see those trends.
It's interesting because people look at the theatre that don't come to the theatre and they think, oh, you need to be a certain age, a certain colour, and you need to have a certain amount of money. And that is just not what we're seeing.
Yeah.
An average show will see between 15 and 20% brand new to the theatre audience, which is amazing. We are always getting new people in. We know that people are buying earlier than they used to. The perception is that everyone leaves everything until really last minute, and that's not the case anymore. So we know that people are now starting to plan further ahead. They want something to look forward to in 18, 24 months' time.
Yeah.
And that's great, but there's kind of constantly changing patterns. But I think for me, when we had Les Mis, that was a really special moment because that was the first time that a lot of audiences that hadn't returned since COVID returned.
Yeah.
And then I've kind of been, sounds so creepy, but I've been watching that audience to see if they've continued coming, and they have. And that was the kind of like the moment when you sit and you go, oh, I survived that, I can probably do it again. And that's the nice thing, is kind of being able to track and go like, we've won them back. And that's the special bit.
Because we've talked about this a lot recently, haven't we? And I know I talked about it a lot during COVID. The trust and loyalty that we develop with our audiences is utterly critical, isn't it? And for lots of venues, that is just intrinsic. But it's kind of brought home to me that our audiences are our first and foremost our stakeholder. We're not funded by the government, we're not funded by the Arts Council. It is our audiences who fund us, and we take that really seriously, don't we, about rewarding loyalty, making sure they get a valuable and high quality experience, and breaking down any barriers for audiences as well.
Massively. I think one of the things that I like challenging the most, people see that I work in marketing and they think that I'm only after people's money. And that is not at all the case. That for me, I don't want anyone to feel as though there is a barrier to theatre and to attending theatre. I think that it should be something that everyone has the opportunity to experience. And I know that kind of there's some campaigns looking at that from a child's perspective of being able to attend theatre before you go to school. But actually, right the way across the board, I don't want anyone to sit and look at our pantomime and go, oh, I just can't make that work.
Absolutely.
So for me, a massive enjoyment for the role is finding new ways to make sure that every single person in our community can access theatre.
And that's something that you are really passionate about. Under your leadership, we've introduced a few new initiatives or started doing things differently to support what I kind of call financial well-being, because we don't want people to find theatre too expensive, but we also don't want people to be in financial difficulty. Just talk us through the things that you've done and we are doing.
So the first thing that we did was we used to do on sales, and we would group together all of the shows and go on sale with 50 plus shows at a time. And that's a lot of money for people to lay out for if they want to guarantee the seats that they wanted. So the first thing we did was move to monthly on sales. So at the same time every month we would put our shows on sale, and we always timed that in and around payday to make sure that we were doing it at a time that felt kind to our audiences. So we introduced My Theatre, which is effectively a means tested scheme for us to offer members of the community that wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise access to £10 seats, free seats, or heavily discounted seats when we have them available. And what it means is that we can guarantee space in all of our big performances that, you know, in London might be upwards of £100.
Yeah.
They can still come and see that kind of West End quality for prices that are affordable.
And how do people access that?
So there is an application form. It is as non-invasive as possible. You just have to send us one piece of evidence to say that you are in receipt of any benefit, really. And from there you get access to, we apply something to your account that means you can then book online.
Yeah. So you do that once and you sign up almost as a membership.
Once a year we ask you to resubmit some evidence just to kind of reconfirm with us that your position hasn't changed. And then you can continue booking, so you don't have to call us and say that you need those tickets. It's completely discreet and is designed to be as kind as possible, because we know that, you know, making phone calls aren't easy, and it's not always nice to say, I need the £10 seats. Or
Absolutely. And then there's another initiative that you're working on, isn't there, around, that's kind of in line with what's fairly standard in other bits of the kind of retail sector and broader marketplace. Tell us a bit about this initiative.
So pay in 3 is something that you can do almost everywhere now. However, it's not something that's quite transferred its way over to theatre, and we are working very hard to find ways that we can do that, because we know that ticket prices are going up, wages are going up. There's kind of an inevitability that things are getting more expensive, and whilst we always try and keep our ticket prices as reasonable as possible, we know that that's still asking a lot for people, particularly for things like pantomime, where you might be bringing 4 people instead of 2. We want to make sure that we can kind of, you know, we've got something to support those on the lowest of incomes. We want to find something that supports the majority of people that are kind of are starting to look and question whether they can afford theatre. So pay in 3 basically will let people spread the cost of their payments, and the aim will be that we can introduce it in a way that you can buy your ticket, attend the show straight away, and you can pay it off. You don't have to pay it all off in advance.
And with no interest attached.
No
to
interest
that, and
attached.
Working, we hope, through PayPal.
That's the hope. But we this year for pantomime trialled our manual system, which was effectively allowing customers to spread the cost. It was really well received, but we heard the feedback, which is they want it on all shows. And that's, you know, that's what we're working towards, is finding more ways that we can make sure that everyone can attend theatre.
And this is a really important part of our overall strategy, and thank you for all your work on that, Zoe. There's more information on our website about this, and we'll be giving updates in newsletters. But Zoe, here in the new year, January 24, what are you most looking forward to across the programme?
God, there's so much. There's so much. I think for me, whether people come or not, when we get West End quality and West End names coming to Norwich, there's like a real pride around the community of people saying, like, wow, look at what we're able to bring to Norwich. So things like Anne Juliet, Dear Evan Hansen, oh no, that's in 25, but Dear Evan Hansen when that comes, Come From Away, Hamilton. You know, we've got Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Like, there are huge West End quality productions coming to our tiny little city, and that's really special. Even if you don't attend, it's great when people kind of, you know, can get excited by that draw that we have.
Absolutely. And Oscar, what are you particularly looking forward to this year?
I think he's probably looking forward to 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah.
I think he's heard there's some good looking ladies in the cast that he might be able to.
And indeed, I think he's looking forward to eating my lunch, which is just...
When they create Sausage Roll the musical, we are onto a real winner.
Amazing. Zoe, thank you so much for joining me on Norwich Theatre Talks, and to Oscar for being so well behaved. If a little disinterested.
He's a diva.
He's a diva. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode. As Zoe was explaining to us, there is so much going on across Norwich Theatre's venues and beyond this year, so look out for the what's on and keep checking out the website and reading our newsletters. If you haven't got your tickets for She Go Looks Back at 2023, do go online and call the box office for returns. And watch this space, if you're a Nimmo's fan, for the new summer show going on sale very soon. I hope you had a brilliant festive period, and I just ask you, if you're making one New Year's resolution, come and see us. See you next time.